I'm totally honored that you guys would actually applaud for me without having the rest of the guys up here playing songs that we actually know. But
Hey, adjust your mic so it's facing your mouth.
oh, got the beard. It makes cool sounds. Nice sunny day, isn't that great? All right, let's see. First, I want to preface this by saying, and this might as well be a question, that I was never that guy who can play a guitar in a guitar store. I was the guy who would look at the guitar in the guitar store, and then I'd have the friend who'd go and whip out the Purple Haze or whatever, and it's like, come on, Kim, play Purple Haze. And I just was that guy who couldn't do it with strangers around and employees who knew the gear better than me, and you know, the other kid in the corner who could play all the Zeppelin songs. It's like, well, it's kind of let me just go do that just play it in my bedroom at some point. So that it was nerve-wracking. So this is probably more so because I don't have that guitar to protect me from all your questions and stares. So forgive me if I screw that up again, because you're gonna want me to play this in a guitar store.
That's great. Am I on?
Oh, I better get a pick out. This is where I keep my picks. The ones I use.
Yeah, check T2.
This is great at TSA. It's like,
Here we go.
we told you to empty your pockets.
Here I am.
It's a pick.
So we're good?
Yeah.
Are we rolling?
We're rolling.
This is great. All right, so everybody here at GC Roosevelt Square in Seattle, thank you all for coming out. Kim, thank you so much for being here. Guild Guitars, thank you for being here. This is a really, really cool thing that we get to talk to you here tonight. And everybody watching along at home on the live stream, make sure you drop your questions in the comments. And let's get it started. We're going to talk to Kim tonight about his relationship with his number one guitar, the Guild S100. So Kim, the original that you have is a 1978 S100. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the first moment that you saw it, or when you first became aware of it as an instrument?
I had a guy in a guitar store direct me to the more budget-friendly guitars in the guitar store, because I look at the ones I was acquainted with, the ones that were endorsed by the rock stars whose records I had in my collection. The Les Paul, the Strats, and this is late 70s. You know, I'm the kid who works at the mall during the summer to earn up enough money to buy like a 25-watt amp, and I'm doing the same thing to earn up money for the guitar. And I go in there with my dishwasher, you know, savings account, you know, cash, and the guitars are too expensive. And I kind of tell the guy the area where I can work in, and what I kind of, you know, what are you looking for in a guitar? It's like, strings. And they direct me to, you know, some more affordable used guitars, and one, I think it was probably about $230. Maybe it was $320. I mean, easy to transpose those numerals, but it was a Guild S100 Deluxe. It looked nice. It looked like an SG, but it was a little bit more ornate. You know, it had some of this stuff going on. It was silver. This is, it wasn't the gold stuff there. It was like this. There you go. And the guy explained, you know, the relationship between Guild and Fender and Gibson. I goes, I've kind of heard the name Guild. He goes, well, you would know them for their acoustic line. They tend to outsell the other manufacturers with their acoustics. But the electric line, they don't do endorsements, so they don't have rock stars in the magazines holding up one of their guitars. And the guy insisted that they're really comparable. They just don't have that name because that isn't something they do. So, all right. And he goes, he explained that was perhaps why it was a little bit more budget friendly as well. So I bought it, took it home, and it did everything I wanted to do, which was, I'd play a chord, and the chord would happen. And that was enough for me. I didn't have any particular stylistic, interests or abilities. I was still a young player, and I'm just learning what's in a guitar handbook or copying riffs from watching the guys a couple years older than you's band play at some, park, and someone goes and plays a Santana song or a Ted Nugent song, and I'm there looking at his fingers. Then go home and pick up my Guild S100 Deluxe and play it all wrong because I wasn't looking at the right part. Then I'd listen to the radio and just keep screwing around until what I was playing on the guitar sounded like what I was hearing on the radio.
Amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of us start off that way. And a lot of us sort of have like a little routine that we do when we try out a new guitar. I don't know if you guys are like this. Do you have like a thing that you do every time you try out a new guitar?
I did for a couple reasons. I was, unbeknownst to me then when I was a kid, I do have some OCD issues, which turns out is really beneficial if you're trying to learn how to play guitar because you just repeat that motion for hours. Just have the TV on, and it certainly came in handy after a few months when you realized you were practicing 5 hours a day every day because nothing else going on but reruns of Gilligan's Island and this. So that was certainly routine, and it was just there was a thing. I also was a huge baseball fan, and baseball, playing kid. I mean, I was obsessively, I wanted to be a baseball player if I thought that I wouldn't be a short, scrawny little, son of Indian immigrants. I didn't realize I'd get, get heavier and taller or whatever. But I read that Hank Aaron used to strengthen his wrists by squeezing a tennis ball, I think it was, or maybe if any of you guys are into baseball, you might know the anecdote better than I do or recall it better than I do. And he would just constantly squeeze like the tennis ball or squeeze things to strengthen his wrist. And I thought, your finger muscles are in your wrist, so I would want to have those muscles strong. And I would do weird things to test the agility and strength of those muscles. This is gonna sound weird, but I'd go to sleep and I'd hold my arms up so the blood drained out of them, and see how long I could just go like this. And my left hand, of course, I'd keep the fingers kind of going. The right hand, not so much, but I'd make sure that I do it until I absolutely couldn't move my fingers anymore. And I'd put my arms down the side, let the blood rush back in. I'd do that every night. And then I would, I'd squeeze tennis balls like Hank Aaron did, just to try to get the wrist a little bit stronger. Still couldn't beat my best friend in arm wrestling because he was a foot taller than me. But eventually, I'd start learning chords this way. I would make just your simple cowboy chord, the E, C, D, A, whatever. I would make that position, and I'd learn the position by just squeezing and pumping. So I'd sit there, just A, damn it, 2 strings, F, 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 and I just sit there and do that, just to habituate my fingers to the position and the motion, and then just keep pumping, just like that was a tennis ball that Hank Aaron was squeezing or whatever.
So that's a pretty intense regime for, for someone that
I didn't go to many parties.
So oftentimes when we get a new guitar, like it'll sort of hand you a song or give you a riff. Did you have that experience with the original S100?
A riff that I would play on it?
Yeah, like often, at least for me, when I try a guitar that's new or fresh to me, it'll deliver me a song, I'm just wondering if you experienced
So you're saying
that.
there's something about the sound or the action of the guitar that would, well, I wasn't that good and I wasn't that knowledgeable. And I was talking with Mr. Jason Lawler earlier, and he's my age, and we both came of age as teenagers in the 70s. So there are certain songs that every kid would kind of learn. If there was one song you could play on guitar, it would probably be "Smoke on the Water," or it would be "Wild Thing" or "Louie Louie," and those were the things that were shown to me before I had my own guitar, and then kind of go visit your buddies and your buddy's older brother. In this case, my buddies were named Pavitt, and their older brother was Bruce, who ended up starting Sub Pop and founding Sub Pop Records. He had a guitar sitting around there, and some guy would come over and go, "Here's how you play "Smoke on the Water." And, okay. "No, Kim, that's not how you do it. What I just showed you was this." And keep going at it. I'm not a guitarist, still not really a guitarist, but I'd have my buddy's big brother's guitar and just kind of work out "Smoke on the Water." So yeah, this is another reason why I didn't play when I went to guitar stores. It's like, here you go. I didn't know pentatonic scales. I couldn't whip out any cool blues thing. I would just get the guitar and like an idiot sit there and go, What do I know about a guitar by doing that? Everyone in the guitar store knows that I know nothing about guitar. So I would just resign I'll just wait till I get that somewhere else.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if we can do a little show and tell on the guitar. Because of the unique design elements of this guitar, they really suit your style. Maybe we could do...
Didn't I take that pick out?
Oh, it's right here. Here we go.
Oh, what did I do that for?
Look at that. It's
Weird.
not lost in a dryer somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I want to start with sort of the feel overall of the guitar. Can you describe for us, that feeling underhand, under your left hand, the shape of the neck, and how that sort of suits your style?
Well, this always seemed to me smooth and round and natural. Now, everyone has different hands and everyone has a different sense and feel. I mean, ultimately, you want a guitar that's going to be comfortable for you. It's like let those jeans shrink to fit and whatever, however your legs are. But this neck was thinner than other necks, and I didn't have real long fingers or anything, and I remember the SGs kind of had a wide fretboard. It just felt uncomfortable to play, but everyone loved the way it sounded. I got this S100, and the action was great because the particular guitar I had, I think the bridge was set, just the action was set somewhat low. I could up and down the neck, it just was easy to play. That's another thing. Is find a nice guitar that's easy to play, and you're less likely to be discouraged in trying to learn it. All you guys know how to play, so it's nothing new to you. But that crappy acoustic that you got from Sears that you played for about a month and then went on to something else, that's what I had until I got that restaurant job and came out with one of these. It was just easy to play. It didn't, I can make the chords that I was kind of reading and learning about, and it had this action that facilitated my ability to learn Ace Frehley triplets, Let's see, I turned that off. That's loud. Let's see. And so I actually watched some friends of mine sitting there going, and of course, you probably heard, if any of you were Kiss fans, that's all over the place there. So I would just sit in my room and like the imaginary tennis ball and like the other weird things, I'd just play that, and just see how fast I could play it, and which is an obnoxious thing to do. But if you're by yourself, it's a fun challenge because we didn't have video games yet to obsess about, playing over and over again. And this just felt comfortable. The neck was not, it was thin, it was fast, and I noticed that things that were difficult to play on other guitars were really easy to play on this one.
And then there's a lot of sort of extra string access on these guitars behind the bridge and even behind the nut to a certain extent. So can you talk a little bit about how that sort of informed your style as it developed?
I did not understand that was something, that was something, particular about that I would find special, because I'm still just playing what my friends are playing or what people are showing me or what I'm learning. So I'm really being guided by what has been put down before me by other guitarists and by your friends and your friends' brothers. I didn't turn that off. So what I would notice when looking at other people's guitars, it's like, well, the tailpiece, or whatever, in relation to the bridge is much closer, and this was further away. So that, coupled with the microphonic nature of the pickups on this older used guitar, it would have this resonator sound back here. To me, that was a mistake or an error when I was younger. I thought, well, and it might have been pointed out by some other guitarists. It's like, you're playing this riff, and then you can hear your fingers go like that, and that's you playing sloppily. And so I would try to avoid that. And I thought, maybe that's a detriment to have this thing be like that. And other guitars, like I said, didn't have so much space between the bridge and the tailpiece. Well, that kind of changed later as my repertoire of my record collection got better and more varied, and I started learning things that other guitars were doing, and even just learning things the Beatles did, like the feedback at the beginning of "I Feel Fine." I remember that they had commented that I don't remember. Maybe everyone knows about the Beatles, and maybe some of you guys know this story too, but I don't think that was intentional. I think the feedback they got might have been unintentional, but they decided to keep it, and good thing they did, because it's pretty intense and offers some sense of, it's sort of like a, well, I don't want to use that metaphor, but it's like it's foreboding. It's anticipatory. There's something about the feedback that lets you know that something's about to happen. And for some reason, a lot of musicians would have those kind of things discouraged from appearing on records. I think engineers and record producers, again, saw that as a mistake. Your hand brushing this while you're trying to play a riff. That's unwanted. That's an unwanted sound. That's an error, or that's something that's getting in the way of an otherwise difficult process of recording something.
Well, that's the kind of thing that, personally, I'm always like, when the mic is open and you catch some of that humanity on a recording, it's like, it's really great. Like, there is something really special about connecting with that.
I think there definitely is. But like I said, in the times we grew up, it was something that was discouraged. It might have been discouraged by my peers. It might have been discouraged by guys who worked in record stores or guitar stores or engineers. It's just extraneous sound. There are a couple brilliant engineers here. I saw Stuart Hallinan a little bit earlier, and of course Nate Yacchino. And these guys probably had some of that experience when they were growing up, trying to avoid unnecessary sounds and noises. At some point, probably from some of the bands I became acquainted with and some of the records I became acquainted with, and just understanding that anecdote about the Beatles having the feedback before I Feel Fine, and then pointing it out on some live records and saying, what's that? That's cool. It's like, oh, that's some mistake. That feedback, it probably shouldn't be there, but it's like a bootleg. I said, well, that's cool. That signals that something's happening, and what's going to happen is the riff that I love. So you hear this, and bam, this comes in. Oh, why is that a mistake? And I wouldn't question it too far then, because I was young and basically ignorant and learning, and so it's like, well, I guess if it's a mistake, it's a mistake. And I would learn chords that way. I'd learn scales that way. It's supposed to be like this, and something that's outside of that scale, isn't supposed to fit. Isn't supposed to work. Yeah. And I thought, I can't believe I had that understanding of music. And my mom was a music teacher, and I never talked to her about this because I would never end up being the guitarist I am if I let my mom describe how to play music. But she was into classical and everything, so I imagine the notes have to be in all the right places.
Yeah.
And you have a conductor telling you how dynamic to perform it. But so that really kind of stifled me for years, trying to play by the rules and color within the lines. And it took a while for me to get to realize that in my pursuit of learning how to play the instrument and learning chords and learning scales, that I'm not a 7-year-old. I can draw and color wherever the hell I want. I don't need people to tell me where the lines are. It's like, this is fucking rock. It's like, it is what, if it works for me, if it works for the guys I play in the band with, then that should be what happens. But still, there's a resistance, there's a hesitation to do something that you're taught is probably wrong. And then you hear punk rock blows up when I'm 16 or 17. You start hearing bands that are just intentionally letting that stuff go. And the funny thing is, part of that is because of budgetary concerns. They couldn't do another take. They couldn't, because that's it. The reel's filled up. We don't have another one, so let's go with that. And then eventually that becomes a target. Let's do this. Let's approach the song with this in mind, or let's approach playing with that in mind. And that kind of whatever cowardice was keeping me from pursuing playing outside the lines was ultimately overcome by seeing these bands that were amazing players and amazing songwriters, and that were not being hampered by that. A band that comes to my mind is a band called Bauhaus.
Yeah.
And the guitarist, oh good God, Ash. Yeah, man. Just the pick scrapes, the feedback. I mean, the whole thing just sounded like it just fit their songs. It fit everything about them. Everything was. It wasn't anticipating. It was foreboding. It was this tension, and it was this dynamic element of music that wasn't just the notes on the paper. And all you music students out there, or any of you who are maybe art history fans, would probably learn that, or I've come to understand that music is one of the more sophisticated and complicated of the art forms, because it has so many different elements that can be manipulated. Not just the scale, not just the 5 notes in the pentatonic or the 7 in the whatever, and not just the chords and how to finger the chords, but there's a dynamic, there's how hard you hit it, there's the attack, there's the way you're communicating with other people, there's a way you're communicating with yourself. Are you being honest in how it's going from your heart to your fingers, and are you sharing that with other people that are doing something similar? Then there's all these other elements of dynamic and compositional elements that we were taught to avoid, or we're dissuaded from pursuing, and those elements create that kind of ambience and anticipation or textures that often you can't write, and you don't. I mean, I think probably some brilliant.
Yeah.
There's probably some brilliant guys who can score, and they probably have some notation for feedback or squeal or whatever. But
Well, I wanted to ask, you brought up making your heart come out of your hands. There are a lot of players out there that when they play emotionally or intensely, they look like they're wrestling the instrument and trying to beat it up. But your approach, and maybe it's because you did so much working out as a child, it seems so relaxed. It seems so like you're drawing the sound out of the instrument rather than beating it out of the instrument.
yeah,
So
I don't break strings too much.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about just your physical approach to playing?
Yeah, it's interesting because it does vary with the mood or the gig or the song. And in general, I think my picking, I guess I had someone pointed out to me, a guy who was a much better guitarist than I was, said, oh, when you pick, you're doing this, your tendency is to kind of rotate and roll like this, because that enables you to do some faster picking, just because you can hear that. It's just like a little I guess,
Yeah.
as opposed to going up
Yeah.
and down. And I didn't realize that, but he just started telling me guys, he was a big Allman Brothers fan, he started telling me guys that did that, and he was just watching. He said, and he goes, you're not going to break many strings. I go, I don't break many strings. Whereas, and this is another thing, guitarists kind of play with their wrists, and bass players play with their shoulders often, their fingers and their shoulders, and most guitarists play with their wrists, but singers and rhythm guitarists play with their elbows, and they break a lot of strings. So if you watch singers who have the guitar, either because they're a great guitar player or it's a prop, their elbow is the fulcrum, and they're drumming, and they're so when they play, they got the lyrics and the music and the meter for the vocals down, and they're playing like this. So depending on how intense they get and how hard they're hitting and how physical they are, bam, they're breaking the strings. But if you watch usually lead guitarists and stuff, they are kind of more wrist. And I think that finger thing that my buddy pointed out probably also. If I do break a string, it's because, I don't know, strings were dirty.
They were on their way out.
They're on their way out.
Yeah. So I want to talk now about weird tunings, weird time signatures. Many of your tunes employ, quote, weird tunings or weird time signatures. And I just want to know, like, how did you begin to incorporate that in your music? Did you sort of burn out on standard tuning at some point, or has it always been a part of the way you make music?
I was not burned out on standard tuning. By all means, I still haven't explored the guitar in standard tuning. There's no way you're going to wear that out. There's so many amazing things you do in regular tuning. But what happened was, I just simply experimented and augmented my playing and writing with the drop D, which just came up conversationally, hanging out with Buzz Osborne from the Melvins, or King Buzz, always is now known, and Mark Arm. And Mark and Buzz and I were hanging out at Mark's apartment in the U District, spinning some records and kind of talking about what's happening in new bands and things that they're doing that's interesting. And somehow, I don't know how it came about, but at some point Sabbath came up because we all liked Sabbath. And Buzz started mentioning a Sabbath song where Tony Iommi tuned the E string down to D, right? And you guys, let me turn that off. So this is totally clean, but anyways. So. It's in there somewhere. And he described that this song was, the E is in D, and I go, oh, so the whole guitar is like dropped down a whole step? He goes, no, just the E string. And I go, well, would that make playing an E chord weird, or an A chord, or all those things that I did that too for years? And he's like, no, but you can make chords in new patterns and new positions, and it kind of sounds heavier. And it's like, so I went home and took out my Guild S100 Deluxe, or Polara, as apparently it's been nicknamed, and tuned it down, and I thought, well, what the hell? That sucks. That sucks. But the power chord, the 1/5 and the octave, you can now do with one finger, as opposed to I'm not in that tuning anymore. But so, and I just love the way how it sounded deep and low. By the way, here's another weird thing. I used to always play rhythm guitar on the bridge pickup, and I'd solo on the neck pickup because the neck pickup was warmer and smoother and a little bit more bluesy. So I'd solo with that, but all the chords and the noises were all bridge. So let me see if I can approximate this sound. I had a I ended up writing a song called Nothing to Say and brought it into practice, and it was one of those things where the band just like, what'd you do? I go, so I just dropped this E string to D, and I kind of came up with this idea, and then I incorporated things that were very particular to the S100. Part of that riff is me playing below the tailpiece. Part of it is me bending up here, you know. So my fingernails clip in the A while I'm bending up. Doing things like that, I mean, and the riff was pretty much just, it's pretty straightforward. You know, you guys, you might be acquainted with it. It's on my friend's big brother's record label, Sub Pop. And then I demonstrate the song to Chris and Matt and Hero, and I said, so now there's this part where we go up, and I switch to the low pickup so it's smoother, and it's like. And they loved that. They just thought, that sounds like a lullaby, and you're doing this fucking heavy thing. You took you drop the tuning to make it all heavy, and then you go and do that. Yeah. And it's like, well, because it's kind of psychedelic, you know. And then we get to this break part, which is just Hero kind of doing just the bass riff. He would start with the bass riff, which was the guitar riff, and there was a break where he would do that. And during that part, I would just turn the chorus on so you get a little bit of that swirl, and he's doing the riff on bass, and I just did this. But you could hear that kind of ambience moving, and it was, you know, we used feedback and we used other noises, but in that song, it was like it's part of the riff, it's part of the composition. So he's doing that. So it sounds noisy. It sounds like that thing that might be a little bit out of the coloring lines. I thought, you know, I remember thinking people are going to think, well, that's just that one note, and he's playing it in the wrong place, wrong part of the guitar. So I thought I'd add, you know, a couple hammer on, hammer off trills just to dynamically move between a monotonous noise to a more, you know, just, I don't know how to describe it. So I'd do this, and the bass is moving underneath it. And then we'd come back in, we'd all come back in. And of course, I played that much more frequently when I was younger, and those kind of hammer-on trills, I started doing less so because, well, the other Ben and Chris don't really play that way. So when they're writing songs, they're not incorporating those things into it. So to us, we're going from heavy and low to this psychedelic lullaby thing, and then there's one note noise thing to more something which offsets the monotony, and it just kind of had a neat dynamic and flow, and everyone loved it. And Chris goes into his room because I think I have lyrics that might fit that, and he goes in his room and he He doesn't come back. He doesn't come back. So we start jamming on other stuff. And then he comes back and goes, play that song again, that drop D thing you're doing. And he comes up with these vocals, and he's so powerful, and it's so high pitched. And he hadn't sang like that with us before. He would sing more of this conventional sort of new wave punk rock mixed with Bruce Springsteen and Bauhausy Peter Murphy, and then all of a sudden he's like, to this song, and our jaws just drop, and we record it. Jack and Dino records it at Reciprocal, and he turns around and he just looks at us and he goes, do we just do that? And we just all just sit there and go, and we're listening to this thing play back, and it's just this other step beyond what we've been doing already, which we already liked, and we had a great audience that loved what we were doing. And we just did that. It's like, how did that happen? And Jack was looking at us, how did that happen? How do you do that? And Chris is like, it was insane. So we thought, okay, let's do more of that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, so it really stems. I mean, it's this partnership of like the features of this guitar are sort of like set as they are, but your creativity into your approach or your attack is like that decision you made. I'm not going to color inside the lines anymore. And then all of a sudden, it's just inspiring all your bandmates around you and being like, we can participate in this thing. It sort of like starts to gel around that concept of not coloring in the lines.
I think there's a part of me that is still withholding, who's still holding himself back, because, I mean, I was taught this by my peers, my friends, by myself, by the standards I held for myself. So I did think I was probably holding myself back and trying to keep it within the lines. But when you hear these other artists that are just saying, screw that, the song works if I do this, and thinking, okay, I can't do that all the time, but I do have to read how I play, and I have to be aware of what it is that the guys I play with are hearing and reading and feeling. And I have to learn what the song might need. You don't know. I mean, you sometimes it's in your head. You go, I hear this noise, I hear this note, or I hear this instrument. Like, why don't we throw a trombone and trumpet on this part here? Why? Because I kind of hear it. And you try it. And surprisingly, with us, it often worked. But in this case, you don't know. Sometimes you hear it, sometimes you just try it and see how everyone responds. And the same thing, like anything else, it's like, don't play too fast, don't play too many notes, don't play not enough notes, don't play too slow. You just gotta, you kind of learn those things just through your own experience as you just kind of mature and become aware of what it is you can and can't do, and what it is you like and don't like, and that's dynamic, it's always changing, but it's informed by the people you're playing and sharing that with. So I'm learning about myself because of what Matt sees and what I do, or what Chris sees and what I do. I'm learning about myself in how I relate with what it is they do and what it is I like about what they do. But you don't want to ghettoize yourself, because then you want to be flexible for when you're playing with other people, and you don't want to lock yourself in a corner and say, I just only do this thing that I can do with Chris and Matt and Hero or Ben or whatever. And so
let me follow that up with then, in this sort of the spirit of try it out. Is that what you think is like one of the primary characteristics of a good collaborator?
I think you need to be receptive to, and this is a tough thing, and bands usually don't last forever. Or maybe the name of the band lasts forever, but the rhythm section's different, or someone's left and been replaced by someone else. It's tough to do. I mean, it's tough enough having parents and eating dinner with them. It's tough having a girlfriend or a boyfriend, as the case may be. It's the best thing in the world for the first few months and maybe for the first few years, but it's a trick. It's a lie. It'll catch you. But bands are more difficult because you got 4 guys or 4 girls and 4 guys and girls and their dog, and they all have this opinion about how things got to go. And sometimes what's got to go is the the band member who is in myself if I'm not fitting. But it lucked out in this case because Hero left, but we got Ben, and Ben is an amazing talent, an amazing songwriter, and it's a tough thing because you might want to color this way outside the line, and someone doesn't want you to do that there. I drew that line for a reason, Kim. I drew that line for a reason, Ben, and so you got to balance that. And sometimes if people are open to it, they hear something that they do or something that you do, and they go, "Wow, you know what? You just bent that border a little bit, and it worked. I like my song better with you doing that." And it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
But
it is magic when it happens.
Yeah,
right?
you're stuck with your parents no matter what.
So let's talk about in the studio recording. The S100 has sort of been a foundational instrument for you and all the records that you've played on. But I want to talk specifically about your approach to soloing. How do you create a song? How do you create a solo that sort of fits in with the song? What is your approach to creating something either very, very appropriate or maybe even counter to the rest of the tune?
Well, usually we've demoed something, right? We've recorded something. Sometimes, if Chris wrote the song, he'd say, "Here's a place where you'd solo," or he might do like a scratch solo, and he goes, "Not like that, but better," or not like that, or and Ben would do a scratch solo, and sometimes Ben might say, "Well, kind of in that vein," or exactly like that. It's like, no, that's not going to happen, And sometimes you just sit on the demo. You go and you listen to it. You listen when you're playing it, and sometimes things just pop in your head. The solo you hear is like you humming or singing along with the song. So if that section comes up and my brain is humming out a part, it's like, okay, now I got to figure out how to translate that to the neck. Well, there are really good musicians out there that can do that. They can have something in their head, and bam, there it is in their horn or on their fretboard. I'm not that guy, so it takes a lot of work. I have this thing in my head. It's like, oh God. Then you got to sit there, and it's like, it's just like that, but it's in the wrong key. So let me move it here. It's like, it's kind of like that, but you're constantly moving it around. It's like, sometimes you just realize that you're obsessing and you're locking yourself into a corner because you have this vision, and it's like maybe there are other things, other visions, other ideas. It's the same thing. Either you stick with an insight you have because you hear it. Other times you just, by the way, I can't do that with this hand. My sister used to make fun of me because she could just sit there and snap her fingers, and she's like 6, I'm there going, But other times you just wing it.
Yeah.
I think I read a cool interview with Alex Lifeson. It was kind of like that. He would just kind of, not beat it to death, which you'd think Rush is the kind of band that would beat it to death. But it's not, because at some point, the thing you're trying to do or the thing you want to do is just going to suck ass. It's like working like. We encountered issues like that sometimes with Super Unknowns. Like, you know what, man? It's been a few hours. I don't like playing this riff anymore. But you got to play the riff. It's like, not for a while, because my fingers are tired. I don't like hearing it anymore. You want me to play something that shows that I hate the song, or do you want me to go back and try to love it again? So the same thing with solos. Apparently Alex in this interview, he said he did exactly what we kind of do. And like I said, Nate Ichino's here and Stuart Hallerman. They've recorded us millions of times, going back currently and going back to the 80s. And we just whip it out. It's like, that's all great except for the whole second half. Try it again, the same approach in the first half, do something different in the second half. And you try that, and then eventually maybe you can do a comp, like 6 different versions of the solo. It's like, oh, this middle part's really great, this beginning part's great. And you do that, and I guess the Rush guys do that. It turns out a lot of guys do that.
Yeah.
It depends on, because you have to sit on it. It's like, what do I like here? What do I like there? How should this develop? That's one way. What about this other way? And then in my case, I've said this before in interviews, but this might surprise some of you. The best reference I had for my guitar solos was a judgment of Matt Cameron. Not Chris, not Ben, not Hero, although those guys play guitar. It was Matt. It was his repertoire of music and his understanding of dynamics, both in jazz and stuff. And he's had a good understanding of color and dynamic. And so things that I was right on the border, like, does this suck? Am I like too far out of the line? Or is this, how much is this wrong? And then Matt would come in and go, none of that's wrong. That's cool. Keep that. And it's like, okay, are you sure? Because that sounds just, no, leave it. But you try another take, but leave that. And it's like, right on. And so I felt like I became a better guitarist, both in terms of my confidence and my ability to explore things, because of our drummer and his aesthetic sense,
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that's great to have somebody to sort of lean on, to be like, can you check me on this? Like, please, just give me your honest opinion. And, if they're in your band and they're an amazing musician, it's sort of easy to be like, yep, all right, great, I got it. I'll take that. So right now, we're in the year 2023.
God damn it, I didn't change my calendar.
And
I don't wear a watch either.
And you've been playing an S100. You've been playing a Guild for your entire musical career, and you're sort of you've become an icon. So you're inextricably linked to this guitar. Like, we could look at a silhouette of you and we would know that it's you with your Guild.
That's the nose. That's not the.
But like Slash plays a Les Paul and Hetfield plays an Explorer. Like, everyone knows that Kim plays the Guild.
Yeah.
So can you just talk a little bit about, like, if you started naming all of the iconic guitarists with their guitars, by the time you hit 20 people, you're running out of big names to call out.
Les Paul, Kelly.
So it's a really, really small list of people who've become so iconic in the guitar world. I'm just curious if that hits you in any way.
I think it does. I think that kind of icon status, though, is indicative of perhaps a difficult, inflexible personality. Is that a good thing to be telling people? It's that, nah, I just play this. Why? Because the other stuff I'm not good at. Because it has a whammy bar. It may be indicative of a familiarity. Well, it is indicative of a familiarity with the instrument, but it could be limiting. When you think of really hotshot guitarists, technical hotshot guitarists are your session dudes. It doesn't matter what instrument you throw in their hands; they're gonna play the song and they're gonna whip it out and they're gonna do it well, and they can play any instrument, and then they can address the song. Generally, those session guys also have a vision of what instrument will work well with the song. I have a very rough understanding of that, like really rough. Like, is it single coil? Is it humbucker? Do I want a hollow body or a solid body? But those guys that are really good, who record, they know that stuff. And that flexibility, they're not necessarily married to an instrument. They don't give it a name like Lucille or Fred Flintstone, I suppose. But I have that kind of particular, both affection and limitation in my relationship with this guitar. So.
Amazing. So in 1994, I was 14 years old, and I was like, I gotta learn how to play these songs that are on Super Unknown. And it's now 2023, and there is guaranteed a 14-year-old who is in a Guitar Center right now who's like playing those riffs. So I'm just curious, roughly 30, 35 years of this legacy of the music that you've been making, it's still, to this day, inspiring new young guitar players to like pick up the instrument and start, and I'm just wondering how that hits you.
You just picked the right age for a guitar store archetype. Yeah. And that's the guy who goes in to play the guitar, check out a guitar, and in the corner is a 14-year-old playing Eruption.
Yeah.
And he just faces everybody in the store. It's like, I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who's like, in his 30s going, do I want a blue one or do I want a red one? There's in the corner playing Eruption. And by the way, thank you YouTube, because now there's like, grade school kids playing Eruption on YouTube, because, God, please don't get mad at me, but that's kind of trained monkey shit. Someone's dad's got them in the garage with the guitar. Now do this. But still impressive. Yay, YouTube, they're rich.
Okay, well, I think that's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. Now, let's see if you could give advice to that 14-year-old kid in order to find their own
Keep
sound.
doing what you're doing. Embarrass people in guitar stores.
I'm saying to maybe go beyond, the performative nature of playing the guitar, but get to a true expression of their own. What advice would you have?
You mentioned the heart thing earlier, and I'm not sure if I fully addressed that.
Yeah.
I think that's a tough one too. It's your relationship with yourself, your instrument. It's your relationship with the material and with the people you're playing with. So you could have a fantastic relationship with your instrument. You can be very expressive, and your heart is in your fingers. But the minute you're with the drummer, or the other guitarist, or a singer, it doesn't show, because you can't share that with the other person, or the other person is unable to share it with you. You might have those other people, and then you might not be able to play it with the mics on and the lights on, with an audience. So there are many more elements in that, besides your relationship with the instrument. That great guitarist, you can take that instrument away and give him a different one, and you can still play with that kind of love and feeling. Some people, they only work with a certain singer, a certain guitarist, certain trumpet player or keyboardist, and they inspire them, they bring that out. Maybe people have a personal muse in their life that is got them being honest in the way they communicate their music through their instrument. But there's so many factors. So you could just be the greatest guy in the corner of the guitar store, and then you throw a band around you, and it isn't there. And so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of risk. You have to allow yourself to be. There's a certain intimacy that you have with your instrument, and you've got to show that and share it with the other guys around you. And if you're unable to do that, either eventually the band's going to suck, or you're not going to be in that band. It is tough. People may not flat out say that's our expectation, because they'll know it when they see it, when they hear it, and when everything's firing all cylinders, and your bass player knows where you're going with the guitar you're playing, and your drummer knows where the bass player is going, and you're all on the same page, and you're all smiling and looking at each other. When you're done writing a song or rehearsing, then you know that things are happening right. And all those things happened the first day that Chris and Hero and I got together, and then the second day. And it was his mouth open laughing, going, "What the fuck? All the people I've played with, and it's never been like this." Yeah. And everyone was saying that to each other, and just going, "Man, what the hell?" So you could be that guy in the bedroom and impress your boyfriend and girlfriend, or you can be that guy with other musicians, or you can be that guy with the lights on. You got to do it all, and it's not easy, and it takes a certain trust and commitment and ability to open yourself up, and that isn't easy.
Yeah. It's probably even harder to open yourself up than it is to get good at the instrument.
It's like exposing a wound. It's allowing yourself to get hurt. And but that's okay. That's why rock and roll has so many punching in it.
All right. Well, at the note of everyone, open up your heart, express yourself freely, and also do some
freely. Express yourself ace freely.
And do some rock and roll punching. So Kim, we've got some questions coming in now. We have questions from people who emailed us ahead, and we've got questions from people on Instagram. We got questions from people here in the crowd, and we got questions from people who are watching on YouTube right now.
Okay.
So
it used to be briefs, but now they're boxers.
Great, exactly. Question one done. Here, let me just get that. All right, so the first one we got here is from a guy named Daryl Thayil. I don't know if you know him, and it is who is your favorite / best looking cousin?
probably Daryl Files' wife, which is a cousin-in-law. So
Nice.
here's my cousin Daryl.
Everybody give it up for Daryl. Come on.
He looks like it, but I don't think he can swing a baseball bat like me.
So
I can't see my toes.
So we've got a question here from Staten or Staten. I'm sorry if I'm misstating what your name is. And this goes back to your early exercise routines here. Nowadays, what are the routines that you do before performances? Any stretching or warm-ups? And how has that changed throughout your career?
My routine before performances is to be left alone, and that's something which would be a communication issue with band members. It's like, get the friends you met at the bar last night out of the fucking dressing room.
Yeah.
You know, we're going on in 10, 15 minutes. I don't want to hear this because my head's already doing that. Leave me alone. Let me shut up my own voice.
I identify with that 1,000%. I'm always like, this is too much going on. I got to get on the stage. I'm literally worried about something right now.
Yes.
Can you guys take the party down the road?
By the
All
way,
right.
after gigs too.
Oh, yeah?
Well, after gigs, usually it's like, well, just let the band just work out whatever it is they need to address. You know, what went right, what didn't go right. Just chill, make your ears stop ringing.
Yeah. Maybe a little huddle and a recap, the play-by-play.
You know, I tried this for a while when I was younger in Chicago. I'd read that Blue Oyster Cult before they went on. Buck Dharma would soak his hands or fingers in warm water to kind of loosen them up.
Oh, yeah.
So okay, I'll try to do that. So I put it didn't make me play any better. It didn't help at all. I was still awful.
All right, so Peter wants to know, can you talk about your use of overbends specifically in solos, beyond the wheel in particular?
Are you talking about
one
like
of
when I
the
go
heroes.
sharp?
And just going crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I had a friend, still have him, saw him last week in Chicago, and he had explained to me that with some singers there was a particular Parisian singer, might have been Edith Piaf. Does anyone recognize that name?
Yeah.
So, and I think what was described to me by my friend was that there were some conductors and some singers that would sing they had perfect pitch and they had great ears. They would sing just a little bit flat. I mean, not discernibly in terms of pitching, but enough that it would be something you'd read in terms of the dynamic of the performance. And then just at as a certain part of the song or the performance where it's what's the Italian word for goes up, and it hits that mark, and then you hit it. So it's like you're just under, and then you hit the note. When it's dramatic, it's dynamic, and you punctuate that. So I took that to mean just go beyond the note in an obnoxious way, and maybe it'll be more so. So it's probably a mix of a lack of training and just that kind of weird nervous energy and aggression when you're on stage. I mean, and they're related. The nervous energy, inability, and aggression, because it's the guy who runs out of ideas who throws the first punch. Remember that. The first person to run out of ideas. So when I run out of ideas, I overbend.
It's a much more peaceful way to go about it. So switching gears here real quick. We know you're a huge baseball fan. And if you were a pitcher coming out to the mound, what would your walkout song be?
This is so cool. I'm old friends of Randy Johnson. He's a big fan of the band. And we got some tapes that were made with him playing drums. We had to move Matt's kid around because Randy's lefty. But he played in the American League, and the American League has a designated hitter rule, so pitchers don't have to worry about things like batting. But then when he started interleague play, some of the American League pitchers were obligated to bat when they're in the National League Park. So Randy doesn't want to do that. He wants professional hitters to go hit for him. He wants to go, sit in a corner and not have people bother him during the down inning and then come back out. So he said he had to bat and he wanted his walk-up music to be Soundgarden. I think he picked Hunted Down off of Screaming Life to be his walk-up music in the case where he's taking batting practice. So what would mine be? I don't know. I wish Randy had a song because I'd return the favor.
Oh, that would be great. Well, maybe we could get like a Randy Johnson, Randy Newman kind of thing. We'll figure it out.
There you go, Short People.
Yeah.
Because Randy's 6'10", so I played the Randy Newman song, Short People, and I'd
Nice.
come out. That'd be my walk-up song because compared to Randy, I'm short. And also, my pitching ability might also come up short. Just bounce it in front of the plate.
Awesome. Holly wants to know, did you really once say that you wanted your guitar to sound like Godzilla?
Yeah, probably. Because before I wanted to be a baseball player, I wanted to be Godzilla. So I think at some point I had the guitar interpret that. And definitely just that sound, that make Tokyo crumble in terror. I think that's something I definitely had thought was a Godzilla, man. Blue Oyster Cult. They're soaking their hands in warm water. Mm-hmm. They're writing a song to to the being that I wanted to be when I was, It's okay. I was pretty young. I was like 16.
All roads lead back to Blue Oyster Cult somehow. So Mark wants to know, we're gonna go in sort of like this is like the BC era or BG era before the Guild.
Before Guild.
What did you go through any other guitars?
Yeah, I had one. It was a Encore Strat copy, and it was Fire Engine Red. It looked really cool. That was probably the best thing about it. And it was really heavy, and it had a rosewood neck, or man, it might have been something else that was just brown. I gave it to a friend. I needed money, so I sold my guitar because you got to keep gas in your car. You got to go to McDonald's with your girlfriend when you're a kid, and you got to get cigarettes because I was a rotten kid, and you got to pay your friend's brother for the beer he got you. So I sold my guitar, and the kid who bought it decided he wanted to do something cool with it, so he stripped the paint and painted it black. Disassembled it and painted black. I thought that was the one cool thing about it, was Fire Engine Red. You don't even know how to play guitar, and you ruined it. So he disassembled it, painted it, and then never put it back together. So somewhere out there are little parts of my Encore Strat copy. And then I got a black version of this Guild S100 Deluxe Polara Kilroy, who's put a Spider-Man sticker on it because I didn't have a Godzilla sticker.
All right, so should we take some questions from our live stream? Okay, let's do it. I have them all. They were beamed to my phone via the internet. So let's start here with Brett. Brett wants to know. Brett once read that Kim always played Soundgarden solos in the tuning of the song. Yeah. And Chris was surprised that you were playing in the tuning of the song.
That's right.
But he's wondering how that differs from regular tuning soloing in terms of feeling and instinct.
Well, for one, you don't have to like stop in the middle of the song and go get another guitar and come back and start soloing. It really did surprise Chris. I think it was during Super Unknown or Bad Motorfinger. I was doing a solo and he picks up the guitar. It's like, that's in this weird tuning. I go, yeah, that's the song. That's the tuning the song's in. He goes, you play in the same tuning? I go, yeah. I think he thought that if I just use a guitar in standard tuning, in that all the notes would be familiar to me, and the scales would be something that I already learned. By the way, I'm no good at pentatonic scales. A, because I didn't learn it, and then B, when people started showing it to me, I thought there's not enough notes, so I just stopped doing it. But he thought that there's some certain patterns I would have been familiar with and acquainted with. And yes, there are. There are certain patterns you're familiar and acquainted with from learning how to play in standard tuning. So what I explained to him is, I guess I have to learn to play with my ears and to kind of wing it and just kind of figure out where the notes are. So I'll play along with the song. I know where the riff notes are, and I can very easily make the go up the octave from there and find the fifth. And then after that, you just kind of fill in the holes, whatever sounds good. And then have your drummer come in my case, and go, that note's good, that note's good.
Yeah, it's important. Everybody needs to have their own Matt Cameron, I'd say.
Yeah. Man, if everyone had Matt Cameron, people would give up starting bands. They'd have to go do something else because everyone would be great. There'd be no one. You wouldn't be able to deride your younger siblings' song selection.
Well, Jeff is curious. He wants to know: is there a chance of a U.S. tour for Third Secret?
Certainly, there is a chance for U.S. tour for Third Secret. Let me see. Chris, what do you think?
You're the problem.
Okay, great. We'll file that under yes, of course, buddy. It's coming right up. On the beginning of the track "Flower,"
Yeah.
were you using a sitar or was that an electric?
Oh,
tune to
goddamn! Now I
sound
gotta
like a
go do
sitar?
it.
All right.
Do you hear that? That's one of those
Oh,
notes
yeah.
that's not supposed to be there. Okay, so this is one of the originals from the early mid '70s. Here's a newer one. It's got these great Jason Lawler pickups. These I guess with the age they become more microphonic. I'm not entirely sure why, but there are people that do know why, and I'm going to speculate that whatever insulates the coils start wearing away or aging. But this is microphonic. I mean, I had friends that had like these weird, like, department store guitars that you could scream into the pickups. It was like, you probably all seen that. You can kind of sing into it real loud. But this, by the way, was a weird function of various open tunings because you have sympathetic strings. You got a D here and a D there. So I cannot do this in standard tuning in spite of the nature of the pickups being somewhat microphonic. But in the D tuning I could, and I don't know how it happened, but it had that kind of sitar thing already in this tuning. That was part of the trippiness of it, was that, you'd have droning notes. So, and then, of course, the drums would come in, and it's... So we recorded that, now it's fine, we can control it. We try to do it live, and you kind of hear how we have our amps set. They're set too loud, and then when you start blowing on the strings where you want something that's a little bit more thoughtful and gentle, all you'd get is this shrieking feedback, and not the nice hummy feedback that you learn to control by where you're standing in respect to your amp, but just this thing that was hard to control. And maybe that was a good thing, but no one else in the band liked it, so I would avoid it. And if I did pull it off live, because the venue we're playing in had the feedback take on different characteristics, some that might work, and then I would go ahead and blow on the strings at the beginning. Then a review would come out, and, Soundgarden at such and such a venue. It's like, Kim Thayil played guitar with his beard. and they all would say that. And I was never playing with guitar with my beard, but I had a beard, so thinking quickly, they put 2 and 2 together. And that's sort of
Well, similar along the lines, Curtis has a question here, and this is, which one of your guitar parts, maybe in your travels on the YouTubes, which one of your guitar parts do you see sort of taught or replayed incorrectly? And could you maybe show us the right way to play it, if there is one that's an example?
There are a lot of examples, but I want to say that heroically, you know, you guys know the band Fishbone, right? So, Kendall, who played guitar with Fishbone for a long time, we were playing some shows with him in Toronto, and he comes backstage, and he was a big fan of some of our songs. He really loved the song Room 1,000 Years Wide. But he didn't know that we're using these other tunings, or he kind of was aware that we're using other tunings, but you know, we didn't publish them on the album or anything. So he figures out these things in standard tuning. And he comes in and he's playing Room 1,000 Years Wide, which is in drop D, and he's playing in regular standard tuning. And he's making his hand just do the extra weird thing. I'm like, holy shit. You're playing it right. And you're playing it in much more challenging, you know, positions. And he was doing that for a bunch of songs. And I thought, A, that's amazing. And B, you have great ears because you're getting it right. As far as people who get it wrong, I can't think of a song right now that, I mean, there's a few, okay, the beard part on a flower, but there's definitely a few others, and you'll see them, like if I'm trying to like learn my songs on YouTube, and I go to the YouTube instructional, and I go, oh, that's how he did it. But then you'll hit, because the guy who's doing the YouTube thing is very skilled in his ear and to identify these things. But sometimes, yeah, they miss it. I mean, a great one is "Immigrant Song" by Zeppelin, which is not a Soundgarden, I grant it, but man, everyone gets that one chord wrong at the end. It's like it's not that complicated. You know, people hear the chord and using their ears, they go, it must be, you know, dum 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 bam. You know, it's this, and they go, these are the notes that are in that. It's like, yeah, but you don't have to do that with your fingers. You just you know, it's figure it out. It's the guys who are doing it with their ears and not as guitarists will. And I know because Nate Uchino and I played that song in front of Jimmy Page at Mopop, and I had to figure that out. I go, there's like a million different ways to make this chord, and none of them seem to be what's the word for just common sense or just none of them seem to be intuitive. Yeah, intuitive or yeah.
Great, thank you.
Cognitively ergodynamic. None of them, because why would someone do that? I mean, he's not a dick. He's writing a song so he can play it. And he's writing a song so he can play it while drinking. He's not a dick. Guys who figure out songs who have great ears, they can be dicks. And that's what they're doing. So this is really easy. And so with Soundgarden, it's the same thing. They hear this weird tuning and think, oh, they're doing this, and it's this chord. It's like, no, we didn't play that. That note's just not in there. It doesn't have to be. I mean, why make it tougher? We're not trying to make things tough by using alternate tunings. The whole purpose is to make things easier. And I know some people took offense at that. It's like, oh, you're playing these songs. Those Seattle bands are playing in drop D. They're cheating. It's like, what do you think this is? Is this a race? Like, well, they're playing a song in drop D. Yes, and now you hear the song. It's the alternative tunings and slide tunings and open tunings are done exactly for that purpose, to facilitate playing the idea in your head. And not only that, but alternate tunings can often inspire new ways to approach a song or to approach the guitar. And so that's purpose. So if you don't do it, just do it anyways. You'll just learn something new about the guitar, learn something new about just come up with a different song. So.
That's great. Yeah, don't make it hard on yourself. Why would you do that? All right, so here we go. Who is this? I don't know if I have a name here. Vormisan. Forgive my pronunciation, Vormisan. What newer bands, if any, are interesting to you these days?
There are a lot of them. I like the ones that certainly are taking unfamiliar elements of music and incorporating them into their songwriting. I think most recently, which is probably now, 15 to 20 years ago, there was a lot of cool stuff happening at Southern Lord Records. Bands like Sun, or as it's spelled, many people pronounce it Sun-O, but it's Sun, like the manufacturer of the Beta lead amps, Sun cabinets and guitar amps. They did a lot of drone stuff and doom stuff and just ridiculous down tunings and using really heavy gauge strings. And then the band Earth, of course, from here in Seattle, Dylan Carlson, was great friends of Kurt, and a lot of similar thing, experimentation with doom, drone, and Americana. So it's like Neil Young meets Floyd and Sabbath, just things like that. And I liked that. I liked their ability to take ambient elements of what is otherwise a very visceral genre. Rock and roll is visceral. Most folk musics are. They're about dance. They're more social than they are art. They're not classical. They're not jazz. They're really about communicating with people, communicating with your band members, sharing music with your audience. And often they have fashion and dance associated with it. And that's what makes it have a certain physical and visceral appeal. To then start a band where you're kind of downplaying that element and say, hey, this ambient is a way that we could understand things psychologically or emotionally, and explore that without compelling you to start doing a two-step or pogo, I suppose. And I like the fact that they're doing those things.
Yeah.
Here's an insane band. Okay. Any of you guys heard of the band Ohm? And this is also 15 years ago. If you haven't heard Ohm, they did some great stuff with a guy named, I'm forgetting, Robert. There's a band called Lichens, Lichens, and it was really this one guy, Robert. I'm spacing his last name. I'm sorry, man. But
Intuitive?
Robert Intuitive. And he plays the Guild S100 Deluxe. When I went to go see him play open for Ohm, he sings, he plays guitar, it's all ambient and trance-like, and he goes, dude, I play Guild S100 Deluxe. And he just did amazing stuff with it, and really impressive. I mean, he did a lot of things that I wish I'd thought of. But he did stuff with his band called Ohm. But Ohm had 2 records that they made prior to having a guitarist. They're basically a hypnotic, droney metal band that has no guitars. It's a drummer and a bass player and a singer. And the Al, the singer bass player, was in the band Sleep. And those first couple of records, like Conference of the Birds, and I forget what the other one, spacing them out right now. Just the idea that they make an album with like 3 songs on it, and one of them is this bass and drums just repeating, and it's some haunting trance-like vocals. It's like, this is heavy and this is dark, and there's no guitars to be found, and I love that. It's amazing.
Oh, that's great. So we're gonna move into now questions from our live studio audience. But before we get into that, as we're doing a crowd control here, raise your hands. Maria has the microphone, and she will bring it to you. While we are moving into that, just one question was sparked for me as you were describing these bands. Very often the guitar is sort of announced, the guitar is dead, the guitar is dead. Like every few years, they're like, hey, guitar is dead. I'm just curious as to your feeling on like the sort of the strength of the guitar in culture these days, and then the strength of the guitar just like in music or as a creative tool right now.
Well, I would say that I don't see how guitars or keyboards can die. Because in the folk genre, which again I described as something that you're usually sharing with your people, your audience, whether it's sock hop or whether it's just communicating your love thoughts to the people in your community. It involves the primary instrument, which is vocals, and the primary way of conveying them are lyrics. And in most of the songs and communities that I'm familiar with, it's that those lyrics are written in English. You know, of course, they can be written in all kinds of one of 100 different dialects and languages from where my parents came from in India. But that doesn't happen without a singer. And a singer doesn't happen while playing the trumpet. It's a tough thing to do. You can play the trumpet, then sing, then go back to the trumpet. Louis Armstrong did it, you know, he can do it. But the guitar is always there. It's a great prop. And you can go up there and talk to your people and sing, and while you're simultaneously accompanying yourself on the instrument. You can do that with piano. But that's hard to do with brass and woodwinds. You have to kind of break the song up. So I think the folk genres of rock and blues and country are always going to be facilitated by communicating orally with banjo, guitar, mandolin, stringed instruments that allow you to accompany yourself while you tell your stories of woe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you sort of have like the whole orchestra under your hand there with the lows and the
Not the way I play it. But some guys, there's some really good players out there. They got the whole orchestra under their hand.
All right, so let's open it up. Who has a question?
Hi. So I really liked what you were talking about with the alternate tunings. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what's your favorite song beyond Drop D alternate tuning? Favorite song that you wrote? And did you, like, find the tuning to fit a riff in your head, or did you experiment with that tuning and find the riff from there?
I think the C, G, G, damn it. Nate, what's the E? I love that tuning. As a matter of fact, at home, I have one guitar standard tuning, and one in C, G, G, E, C, G, C, G, G, E. Because the standard tuning one, I can really easily drop the E string down to D if I want to play something in D. But the one that's just all C's and G's has a lot of sympathetic notes and you dual notes, so it's like playing a 12 string, right? Only you can have that dual sound, which is trippy. You can let one of the strings leave one open, and you can drone in that key or a minor version of that key on the adjacent string, and it does have that Eastern flair to it, but it also has a familiar rock thing to it, or because of the C and G, what are those, fourths, fifths, you know. And I think Ben brought that to practice with his song Head Down. And so I immediately, when learning the song Head Down, I started playing various solos and coming up with other guitar parts to augment the song. And they're there on Super Unknown. There's other guitar parts that weren't part of the original song that Ben wrote that added to it and augmented it and brought it out. And it came about so easily because of the tuning. And it allowed for trippy things, just psychedelic things. So I just started writing songs with that tuning. And 1,000 Days Before off of King Animal is one that I wrote in that tuning. And there's a lot of other songs that we haven't published yet or recorded that were kind of in that tuning. It seemed natural and easy for me to write in that tuning. And you approach songwriting guitar totally differently because there's something unfamiliar about it, but also easy about it. So try that one.
All right. Who's up next? Oh, well, we'll start back there. We'll snake our way up.
Hey. So I play here in Seattle, and my band, we've been playing for 7 years. It's called Tryin'. But we're
What's
going
the
to be
name?
going Tryin', Tryin', apostrophe. And so we're going to the studio for the first time in 7 years. I was just wondering if there's any tips you got for me.
Use Nate Yachino. or Stuart Hallerman. Those guys are both really good engineers and record producers. I'm sure there are others, but
yeah. That's awesome.
they're not in this room. That I
Trying. That's good. All right, so let's bring it up this way. On a blue shirt here, or blue blazer. This is a blue. What in the blue blazers?
Thanks for coming, Kim. You mentioned being a teenager in the 70s, that being the most, obviously when you're a teenager, it's the most formative years of your life a lot of times. You mentioned like Kiss and Zeppelin and those bands being so huge for you. As somebody who was born in the late 70s and was a teenager in the 90s, you know, your band was like a Zeppelin for me. It was like a Kiss for me. Does that register with you? Like, do you process that?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
does that make sense?
yeah, it totally does, and
Does that just trip you out?
well, it does. I mean, that totally blew our minds. And here's what's weird about that is that we anticipated that. We didn't anticipate that you would say that, and that and other people would say that, and that we would understand ourselves that way. What we did anticipate was we wanted to be the kind of band that inspired us and influenced us. So we would say, the way Pink Floyd did it, the way Zeppelin, Ramones, it's like the bands that you respect and the bands that give you this kind of insight into yourself and that help you kind of understand something about yourself, and the bands that perhaps help you do that because you see something in them that's inspiring. And so it's not just the music; it is the way they organize and relate with the other band members and the material they write and the vision, the consistent vision, whether it's the artwork, the album titles, the songs that they come up with. That's all totally impressive. I mean, it wasn't just that they were called Devo, but they had like weird lettering and graphics and kind of embraced this kitsch from the '60s. And their songs are like, man, it was amazing in weird time signatures. We wanted to be that. It's like, well, how do you be that? Well, let's be true to ourselves. Let's be who we are. Let's be what we like about those people. What do we like about them? Well, they're good. They write cool songs. They have cool record covers. And we just kept that in mind. It's like, just fucking do justice to your record collection. And we did and didn't anticipate the fact that there'd be anyone born after us, I guess, who would have that kind of experience. I mean, I think outside we knew, if people hear this, we want them to go home and say, man, I love this Soundgarden record because just in the way that we loved, listening to Pipers at the Gates of Dawn or Master of Reality, Awesome. And I'm so fucking proud of the guys I played with, and I'm just so fucking proud. I'm so proud of Chris's, just devotion to that vision that we had when we were kids, and the fact that we were able to do that, and that. Thank you, man. That's, I'm glad. I mean, I'm proud. It's like you did it right, buddy. That's what I wanted to tell him.
There's a whole generation of guys like me who are in bands who had posters of you, posters of Kurt and posters of Chris, and we played in basements, and you were our Zeppelin and our Kiss and stuff, so that it's just hugely influential to us, so thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I wish I had more swagger and cockiness so that I could, because I met Jimmy Page. It's like he's worth being he's heroic. Definitely. I don't know.
All right. Who's up? Oh, let's go up front. To the gentleman in the Nirvana shirt.
Thanks for coming, Kim.
Skin yard shirt, cool.
I had a question. Do you
Nirvana, they're okay.
Do you feel like geographical area can impact your sound, and did Seattle influence your playing growing up?
That's a really good question because there are a lot of people have weighed in about that for decades, and I think most of them are probably wrong. I think the idea that a geography, people commenting on the weather or some aspect of the culture that was unique to it, that's just a parallel, that correlates in a parallel fashion. Doesn't mean there's some causal connection. I think yes, there are elements in that. I found Chris Cornell here, and Hero and I, moved here to be around an environment that was not so. We came from Chicago, Hero and I, and it's kind of tough to get a gig if you're underage, if you don't know how to play covers, if you're not in a union. It's like, you can just you come here and you can probably get a gig and play around Olympia, and if you could, attend Evergreen State College. So there's some aspect of geography in the culture that might support it, but there's really there's always it's uphill, and you're hitting walls, especially when you're doing something different. I mean, yeah, Seattle got known for alternative bands and punk rock bands and experimental bands. They didn't roll the red carpet out for them. I mean, they had to bash their head against the wall, whether it was whether it's the other retail industry communities and service industry communities that didn't like the guys with leather jackets smoking and hanging out, drinking their 40s in front of the club that's down the street. If it was Doug Jewett, the Attorney General, who proposed legislation and ordinances that really impeded kids from starting playing clubs or starting bands, things like the Teen Dance Ordinance, which some of you might be aware of, or the anti-postering. I walked up and down Eastlake and University Avenue with my girlfriend stapling Soundgarden posters on telephone poles, and then along come the city and says, "Oh, you can't do that because someone might fall off the pole and injure themselves." So they just came up with all kinds.
Eikenberry versus Soundgarden. The lawsuit, remember that one?
Eikenberry versus Soundgarden.
The Attorney General.
I think we volunteered to be involved in that lawsuit. God, thanks for remembering. They didn't want people putting up posters on public property, which is a great way of promoting and advertising for young bands. So in spite of that, no matter how rad you think you are, there are impediments in your way. I mean, Seattle likes to pat itself on the back for Soundgarden and Nirvana and Mudhoney, et cetera, but they fucking put tacks and nails underneath the tires. You guys are the ones to thank for Mudhoney and Nirvana and Soundgarden, not Seattle, but individuals who believed in us and supported us, So no, geography, that's a tough one. Probably not, but there's so many factors. So little.
Like the beauty of it, like the mountains.
Well, aesthetically, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something that again, maybe really ugly environments. Like there's some brilliant artists that come out of devastated economies and war-torn countries. I mean, sometimes conflict and resolve of that kind of friction and conflict brings some kind of growth and insight that can be interpreted musically or writing or literature. It's hard to say. I think sometimes having a community that offers support helps. Like, I don't think we would have been the band we are, but I don't think we could have had the success we had or even stayed together as long as we had if it wasn't for a community that included, Mark Arm and Mudhoney and Jack Endino and Skinyard, a Chris and Nirvana and the guys in Alice in Chains and on and bands that broke up before you guys got to hear them that were wonderfully supportive. So is that geography? I don't know. It was our space with our people at that time, and everyone helped each other out. They didn't try to trip each other or flatten their bike tires or throw a broomstick into smoke. Let me describe more things which people can get seriously injured. But we helped each other, and we believed in each other's bands because they were all cool bands. And the Melvins did something. It's like, wow, you took that with you to your next practice, and you did something. I imagine the guys in Malfunction or Nirvana or Mudhoney would take it and make note of it. So But no, it's not the weather. It's not the flora or fauna. I doubt it.
So we'll go to the next one, and while we're on our way there, let's go with this gentleman in the white shirt. We'll paint the tunnel on the wall so that they just run right into it.
White shirt. My cousin Daryl, he got his question.
Hello.
Hello.
First of all, great honor to even get to meet you. Thank you so much. One of my favorite Soundgarden songs is Rusty Cage.
Yeah.
And I heard that song in a video game growing up, and I've loved it ever since. I was hoping you could tell us a bit about like the song itself, how you wrote the riffs, and despite having like a B string in there, it's not just a lot of chugging and a lot of low tones. It's actually very cool melodies, and the intro itself.
Yeah.
I've always wondered what amps you used, how you recorded that, and Chris's vocal parts as well.
I do not remember. If that's on Bad Motorfinger, it's very likely a PV VTM. I think we toured on those. It wasn't like they're my favorite amps, but they were convenient, and we had an endorsement deal, so you got to have a whole bunch of them when you're on the road. So if you break one because it accidentally got pushed off of a stack of amps, you'd have another one that you can replace it with. That riff, that song, there's no solo in it, there's no color parts, it was very straightforward. Chris demoed that, and it's one of the few songs. I mean, there's more contribution from the band in Black Hole Sun than there is in Rusty Cage. Something about the nature of the arrangement and the writing of Rusty Cage, when Chris wrote that, it's like, I remember he said, you could do a guitar solo here, and I remember thinking, but that'll ruin a really cool, heavy part. It's like, well, there's room in there if you want to do guitar solos. And the action of the main riff, the A part, it's just so fast and it's hypnotic and repetitive. It seemed like there's enough going on, enough variety dynamically in that song that it didn't need to be punctuated with improv. And that ending part is like this heavy groove and some weird time signature or another, and its contrast with the really fast parts at the beginning, that's enough of that in itself is a bit of a, it's a dynamic, it's like an improv solo in itself, and that it's twisting your head around to look at this other thing. So yeah, oddly, Ben had free range to just come up with whatever bass things he wanted to come up with, and generally wouldn't question it, because it always fit. He had good ears, good sensibility. Matt, because Chris was a drummer, and he had such regard for Matt as a drummer, that if Matt changed stuff up, Chris would think, hey, bonus. I wrote this part, and I did some drum machine stuff, and then Matt came and turned it upside down. That's cool. So yeah, that's a weird thing to say when you think of if you think about a song like Black Hole Sun, which is very arranged to fortify and deliver the vocal melody. But that has a lot of noises and guitar solos and Ben's improvising on bass all over the place. And Rusty Cage just play real fast here, do this thing. There's not a lot of room to fuck around, you gotta do that. And then when you slow, it's like, oh, you can fuck around there, but it's like, why would you want to? The fact that it's just kind of going boom and falling off the ledge right there was enough of a move for the song that it was working. And it's such a fun riff to play. So
Cool. Where should we go? Oh, right here. The gentleman in the black shirt with his hand up.
So I love amps, hearing about amps. What amps are you currently using now? And do you find yourself moving into modeling or Kempers, Quad Cortex, plugins, or are you staying with amps?
And this is really not to be snarky, but that one there says Boogie and Mesa Boogie. And I've said this in interviews, and oh God, and Nate and Stuart know what I'm going to say, but I've often failed to be on a first name basis with my equipment, so I know that it's Mesa Boogie. What kind of Mesa Boogie? I don't know. It's like can I dial this in? Can I make it sound warm? Can I do that? And I kind of leave it at that. So that is one of the first questions I get asked by guitar magazines. So what's your gear? It's like, amp, guitar, pedals. Well, what kind of chorus pedal? I believe it's an Ibanez, and I'd be wrong. Oh, I'm right, it is an Ibanez. But for a while I had a Boss, you know. So with the amps, it's like, my deal is, I don't like that. I don't like that. That doesn't feel right. I don't like that. That sounds like a Van Halen amp. That sounds like a Metallica amp. I don't want to sound bright and brittle. I don't want to sound like I'm a drum. I want this. I don't know how to identify that because I don't sit in guitar stores because there's a 14-year-old who plays Eruption and scared me out of the guitar store.
Very good.
So some guy who knows the equipment better than I go, try this. We know what you like. And I can listen to it and go, that feels good. Can we make it more gooder? You know, and I'll do that.
Very good, very good. Okay, let's bring it back up to the front here to the Skin Yard shirt.
Hey, I'm to understand that you studied philosophy at the University of Washington.
Yes.
Cool. I'm not wrong in that. Okay. I'll proceed.
What do you mean by wrong?
Yeah.
See, there it is. There's the question, really. But we didn't hear it. Exactly. No, anyway, do you find that you used anything from that or benefit from that in your musical career, or was it kind of something that your experiences with that education just maybe formed maybe part of who you were, or just a cool excuse to get on the radio there and get some cool singles?
I think it is. I mean, one's education certainly informs your it can be informative of your personality and character, right? So, at least in that regard, philosophy, I think, as a field, does involve asking a lot of questions. I've been obnoxiously inquisitive as a kid, as my mom told me that you're asking the doctor too many questions, and none of those things are going to affect you as a young boy. I think that ability, or just the tendency to ask questions and explore things and evaluate things and then burden your brothers with those questions does help you arrive at some kind of insight into what you're doing. I know that in various periods of time, I might have a tendency to want to analyze something we've recorded or written, not to pen it or to put it in a jar, but just to understand how it got to be the way it is. And in various periods of time, that might annoy friends or band members who are like, well, why are you doing that? Why don't you just let it be? I go, do you not notice how I let it be with everything? I just kind of, that's one aspect of my life in which I can kind of judge things by feel or whatever. But I still need to understand it, and I can't understand that by feel. I can do it, but I want to understand it. I want to understand why this works, why, and I think some people, like Chris, would often love that exploration and that question, or hero, or sometimes they wouldn't. It'd be like, I don't want to think about that right now. But then I go, okay. Then I'd go and sit in my bunk or in the back of the van and just sit there and look out the window thinking about it until I got really annoyed with myself. But I think the philosophy thing helps in that regard, in that you can start, why are you asking that, and what is it you're trying to address? What is it you're trying to understand? And it helped me kind of sort through those things. You know, if anything, it's tempering a particular neurotic propensity that I had.
All right, let's go with right here, right up front. Is this Whitney Houston?
Yes, it is.
All right, Whitney Houston.
Thank you. Hi. Can you give us an example, or tell us what's on your board and give us an example of when you would use some of those sounds?
Okay. There's a thing here, it says Yankee SMM12. I don't know what it is. Nate put it there, and I'm obligated to it because it's on my pedal board. The next to it is Studio Guitar Interface SGI 44 by Radial. Don't know what that does. Again, my guitar tech put it there to help facilitate something else. Wah-wah, I know this guy, the crybaby. And here's, I did this interview with Rick Beano and with Chris and Jack and Dino, and he asked me why you play wah-wah with your left foot, but you're right-handed. I was like, yeah. And some people thought that didn't make sense. They figured you're right-handed, you're right-footed, left-handed, left-footed, but nope. Playing kickball in the school grounds, they have a bunch of brilliant, and they were brilliant. I mean, kids come up and go, "You're kicking with the wrong foot. That's why you suck. Here, kick with your right foot." And I sucked worse. So I'm left-footed, and because I don't pay attention, stop calling me, man. That's vibrating weird. Because I don't pay attention, the pedal board to be laid out for a normal right-handed guitar player who's playing with the right foot. And I'm left-footed, so I'm over here playing the song, and now it's time to do the guitar solo, and I'm going like this. And I'm crossing my leg over, and it's not comfortable, and it's awkward, and I'm not thinking that's because I need to move everything around for my left foot. And it still is a problem. I mean, I blame myself for not paying attention to it or addressing it, but I like that guy. And I used to not use it when I was younger, but eventually I started liking it because I could make it squeal over Chris's guitar. Because when he didn't play guitar, I could do whatever the hell I want. When he started playing guitar, it's like, God damn, it's a solo part that he's still playing. So I'm going to have to make it squeal. Then the chorus. I love this, and I used that from like probably day one when I was with Chris and Hero. And it's partly because we formed in 1984. Hero and I and Chris all like the Police. And if you're acquainted with the work of the Police, there's definitely chorus in there. And it facilitates, although we didn't play reggae, it's certainly good with, it's great with our arpeggios. You know. I forgot what tuning I'm in, but. It augmented harmonics, and of course we wrote songs with harmonics and songs with arpeggios. I'm not in the proper tuning, but like the song Heretic, I'll just go ahead and tune it. Which one? It's on Deep Six. Yeah, and it was on Deep Six, and we wanted to put it on Screaming Life, but there wasn't room because Sub Pop didn't want us to do a full-length album. They just want us to do just 6 songs. But that song has arpeggios, and it has harmonics in it. So the arpeggios, God, do I remember how to play this? Well, no, I don't. But the A part went like this. Without a harmonic, that you hear when I kick it on that it kind of shines a little bit more, and it kind of moves and wiggles, so it's psychedelic. That chorus works great with feedback. So rather than just getting a little squeal or a little hum, the thing kind of turns and moves. So that added some kind of motion that was like, I don't know, a UFO landing. Although we don't believe in extraterrestrials inhabiting those UFOs, we just like the foreboding. And the harmonics, of course, it brings that up, and of course, arpeggios. It kind of makes. And so that was all over the place on our early stuff, and then as we started writing more hardcore songs and some heavier songs, I kept using it, and at some point, I think Jeff Ament of Green River, you might recognize him from Pearl Jam now, but Jeff commented that you're still using that chorus all over the place. Like you have it on every song. It's like, yep. But the nature of our songs changed from using harmonics and arpeggios, as I demonstrated, and feedback, to these kind of heavy riffs that you'd hear on like Beyond the Wheel, on Ultimate OK, or some of the stuff from Louder Than Love. And having the chorus on it was now getting in the way of the kind of the bigness and the bite of the riff. So I eventually had to turn it off. Now the other things here, there's a delay. Same thing. T-Rex Reptile Delay 2 Flutter. I've used that, I think, as an effect on just a few songs here and there, just to augment it, have it do things that perhaps that I would want the chorus to do, but it isn't doing. And then, Nate, what the hell is Lex Strymon? What kind of pedal is that? No, what is that? Oh, okay. So, Black Hole Sun has it has the first part, that's way the wrong set. That's way too loud for that part. The part's like, a bunch of angels dancing around. Then you got the heavy part. So we want to use a Leslie cabinet. We'd use, if you guys are acquainted with that, it's got a speaker that rotates, and you might might have two speakers. I think there's a horn and it rotates. The Beatles use it on some stuff. We decided that it might add that kind of cool motion to, I believe the first song we used the Leslie cabinet on was a song called Cold Bitch, which was on, I think it was a Bad Motorfinger outtake. And Chris decided that he'd want to try something like that on Black Hole Sun because of we had the arpeggiated part, which is the verse of part of Black Hole Sun, which I would be inclined, actually a lot of that, there's a lot of arpeggios all through that song. I'd be inclined to use a chorus on something like that, but having been dissuaded of that years before by Jeff Ament, Chris came up with the idea of using the Leslie cabinet. Well, you could take a Leslie cabinet on tour with you, I suppose, if you want to, and just hook it up to that one song. But we would approximate it with, I use a Rotovibe, and Rotovibe would do some of the job of the chorus. It would kind of give that motion for Black Hole Sun if we needed to. But then Nate and a previous guitar tech of mine named Josh Evans came up with a pedal situation where you'd get that sort of rotating effect of the speaker. And then this fucks it up more is because Chris decided that the speed of the Leslie cabinet for the verse, and it was not working during the choruses, which are a heavier part, a little bit slower arpeggiated part, and it wasn't working. So fortunately, the Leslie had we could adjust the speeds. And how do you do that live? How do you play this arpeggio with the horn spinning really quick and then slow it down when you happen to change to the chorus? It provided a particular problem, and the guitar tech sorted it out with a particular pedal where you can adjust the speed of the effect. And I can A/B between the two. I don't know what it was called because I just ended up referring to it as a Black Hole Sun machine. And the brand or model that we used is lost on me forever. A Rotosphere. Well, now it's back in my head. I got to go throw it out again. So this thing, the Lex Strymon, is something that Nate picked up that he thought would simulate that effect. I'm sure it will. Black Hole Sun is not my go-to riff, when I'm jamming, and probably won't be requested. I will be requested to play it at some. So in that case, we're going to have an unnamed and poorly understood foot pedal at my disposal to do that song.
Excellent.
Thanks, Nate. All right, I got to work to forget that.
Okay, so how much time we got? One more? We have time for one more question. So who is going to go out with a bang? Okay, the children. Let's ask the children right here.
Oh, no, now I'm going to be all just, he's going to play Eruption. Can you do that? Nope. Mike McCready can.
I started a band like a few months ago, and I wanted like tips like for gigs.
Tips for gigs, like, man, back in our day, we'd engrave our songs on the side of a tree. We'd make a demo cassette. We take that cassette to the promoter, the guy who runs the gig or books the bands. It's like, hey, here's 3 or 4 songs that indicate the kind of music we play, and you decide whether it's good or not. And regardless of whether it's good or not, we'd get gigs. Like, well, this band or this type of music will fit opening for this artist that's coming to the town, and we get a phone call because you put your phone number on that demo cassette, and they call and say, hey, do you guys want to go play this show with so-and-so from Texas or so-and-so from New York? And you say, and you take the gig. But since people aren't handing out, cassettes as demos, what the hell do you guys? What do people do now? I mean, just
Make TikTok
this email, just like this. Here's a file or a link to my my song. And
And then they check to see how many followers you have.
that's so easy to share, which could be bad. The cool thing about the demo cassette is someone's got to go and burn off copies, and most promoters are just happy to like give it to somebody and book the band. But yeah, that's the deal, I guess. Or was that not your question? Do you want to know how to get along with your bandmates? I have no idea. Do you want to know how to get people to notice a band or how to get people to book you? Yeah, well, she just told me it's email. Just email a link or this a file of your song to whoever it is that books those gigs, and then send them a picture because they'll see a cute little kid face and they'll go, yeah, get him a gig.
All right, great. So thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the Guild crew, the GC Seattle crew. So we're going to get set up now for autographs. Everybody at home, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for joining in. The Guild S100 and the Polara. Check them out at your local Guitar Center or guitarcenter.com. Bye.
All right.
Excellent.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much. Kim, that was great.
Well, I went from nervous to less nervous.
Yeah, it was good. What's that? Yes,
Hey.
we have them
I'm gonna-
available here.
All right.
1, 2, 3. Everyone, hi. I want to give you some instruction on how to make this